Hey everybody, Marcus Crawford here with the Idaho Quadcopter channel. I've got the Hubsan Zino out today, just the regular Zino, not the Zino Pro, not the Zino 2, the original Hubsan Zino. I had this out the other day doing a comparison with the Mavic Mini, and I noticed that I started getting a battery depleted error. In other words, an error that says battery depletes too soon or something along those lines. And I did notice that the battery would go from 100% to like 65%, something like that, very, very quickly. So I don't know what that's all about. The one battery that I have has maybe 6 or 8 cycles on it, so I know that it should be just fine. The other one, I had another battery that had, oh gosh, maybe 15 or 20 cycles on it, so I know it should be good as well. So I think it could be related to upgrades in the app. I had not flown since 8.3.2, I believe it is, came out, the newest version of the app. The previous version of that was 0.1. So I noticed this on the 0.2 version of the app. That may or may not be the situation. Don't really know. It's just when I noticed it. So just to make sure that it isn't something with my batteries, I have access to another Zino, and I borrowed a battery, and I've got that battery in the Zino right now. It's known good. It's been flown in that other Zino without issue. So I want to see if I get that same warning when I fly. Now, could I have a problem with my drone specifically? Could it be drawing too much power someplace? This is one of the original Hubsan Zinos. I've had it for well over a year, so that's possible too. But anyway, I'm going to put the thing up in the air, and we're going to check and see if we get any more of those battery errors. I will say, you know, the aircraft doesn't exhibit any other negative behavior other than that. It seems to fly just like it always has. So let's get the thing up in the air and let's see what we can see. Okay, we're waiting for the aircraft to get all its GPS, get enough satellites here. But real quickly, let's go in here and look, and let's see. I think it's at the bottom here. I can look and see. Yeah, so I had those numbers transposed. The previous app was 3.8.1. This one is 3.8.2. That's when I started noticing the issues. Whether that's it or not, I don't know, but that's just when I observed it. So so let's get out of there. And yeah, it's saying ready to fly. Let me do my GPS binding, and we'll get the thing in the air. Okay, so as you can see, we're showing 100% battery. I'm going to start video now. Video is started. We're shooting in 4K 30 frames per second, and I'm going to go ahead and hit takeoff on the app, and we are at 100% battery, so let's take off now. And there's little to no breeze today, so the drone is pretty steady here. Let's flip it around here. Maybe we can bring it in and get a good close look at it. So I'm going to do a quick yaw here, and we'll see if the drone moves around. Typically it does, and it is. It's moving around here. That's typical of the Zino because it doesn't have any optical flow or downward facing sensors. Let me back it up just a little. It was coming towards us. Okay, let's do our usual first thing I always do is a manual droning, reverse and up. We'll drop the camera just a little, reverse and up. And that looks like we're dropping rather quickly in battery. We're down to 74%, 73%, and all we did was take off and do one quick maneuver. So that's kind of interesting, but we don't have any warnings yet, so that's good. I'm going to stay within the confines of the park here because so that's the error that I was getting. Battery drains too quickly, please replace. Now I have to believe that is something in the algorithm with regard to either the firmware on the drone or in this app. So yeah, we're just going to fly around a little bit and let's just see how much flight time we get. I can tell you in the past, you know, a lot of flight time on this drone is, if you get 17-18 minutes, that's a good battery. And I typically land, you know, I don't drain the battery down to 0. I land at, you know, 20% or somewhere around there. So we're down to 68% after 3 minutes in the air. So we're not going to go over the top of those guys playing basketball, but we will go right over the top of where we're at now. I'm going to raise the camera just a little, and I thought I had, I'm going to go in, no I can't, maybe I can. Yeah, I want to turn on grid lines. Okay, there we got our grid lines. I like grid lines. That allows you to you know if you've got a good horizon or not. So we're full stick forward here. We're essentially going to fly right over the top of us. 8.4 meters per second, that's pretty good. That's about 19 miles an hour or something like that. Down to 66% battery. And it's almost right over the top of us. We're down to 60% battery, which you know, it seems to be draining normally down. The percentage seems to be going down normally now, although we still have that warning on screen. So let's go ahead and go into the menu here, and hyperlapse. Yeah, it says please update the aircraft image software before using this function. And I have the latest camera firmware on here, so I have to believe that must be a function just for the Zino Pro. Don't know that for sure. Anyway, we're going to go into orbit mode. And I really like the version here where you can set the transmitter as the point of interest. So we're going to raise some altitude, and it should do one full rotation around us. This drone does orbits really, really well. And you can do a point of interest orbit really easily with it. I like having the option of being able to set the controller as the center of the orbit, but then if you want to, you can set a point of interest. So we'll do that real quick here too. It's gonna finish its orbit here pretty quick. And I forgot, it doesn't. I have to stop it, so it would just keep orbiting if you let it. So you have to hit the stop button when you want it to stop orbiting. Yeah, it's draining pretty quick now. It's down to 40% now. So I thought it'd kind of stabilize, but then it came down pretty quick. Well, let's go in there and let's go into orbit mode again, and let's go into not point of interest. Set the aircraft's current location as the point of interest. And now I need to back it off, or actually let's go forward. And I think it should do, yeah, it should do a circle with the camera. Well, no, it turned itself around. Okay. So it did turn itself back to its center, and it's orbiting the center that we set for it. So we're already down to 39% battery, and we have been recording video for 9 minutes. And we started video right before we took off, so that's going to be pretty close to our flight time. That's abysmal. That's not, it's sucking down the battery really fast. Now, is that related to software, either the app on the phone or the firmware in the drone, or is it my drone in particular? I can't tell you. I know, you know, like I said, I've flown it a lot and I've had it for over a year. So is it, for some reason, is my drone using more power than it used to? Couldn't tell you. And we're just going to fly around here a little bit. Yeah, now we're at 30%. What I want to do is let it go into emergency return to home, or low battery return to home. So I've seen online other people complaining of this same thing. Yeah, so it's going to go into RTH here pretty quick. It's telling us 3, 2, 1. Yeah, so it's going to come home. And I'm just going to let it land. It's at 25% right now. We're at 11.5 minutes of flight time. I'm not going to shut off video because I want to keep that timer going so that we can tell. And the second it lands, I'll stop that timer, or stop the video, and we'll be able to see how much flight time we got. So I'm going to let it land in the grass if it has to here. You know, they advertise, I think, 23 minutes flight time for this drone, something like that. You would hope that you'd get at least 17 or 18 minutes. I'm telling you, this does not give you enough time to do a heck of a lot. We've got an aircraft up there. He's way up, much higher than us. It's coming down here. It's going to hit pretty close. I'm going to get out of the way so you can see it. So, 12 minutes and 45 seconds of flight time with 25% battery left. Now, okay, so let's say we could have pushed it and got another minute of flight time. Would have been 13 minutes and 45 seconds, something like that. That's not good. So there's no question it's going through a battery pretty quickly. So anyway, more to come. I'm going to decide what the next thing to do. Maybe I take this same battery and I fly it in that other Zino and see if it makes any difference in there. Maybe we'll try rolling back some of the firmware in this guy. I've got, well, I can show you real quick what firmware we have in here. We've got the flight control firmware 1.2.05, and we have the FPV firmware 0.3.6, and that's the last known good one of the FPV firmware. Even Hubsan rolled that back. They came out with 3.8 and they rolled it back. Yeah, so Gimbal Firmware, I guess we can look at that too real quick. So that was also something that I ended up rolling back on this drone. They had 3.0.2.8 out for a while. I had a very skewed horizon. Hubsan actually told me to roll it back to this one, 3.0.2.2, and it's been fine ever since. Nice stable horizon, and this Gimbal Firmware has been around for quite a while. So in any case, I'll save this this video, and we'll pick it up another time and figure out what we're going to do next and see what we can do to avoid that error message, and also to hopefully get a little bit more flight time. Hey guys, Marcus Crawford with the Idaho Quadcopter channel here again. So I'm out here at Heroes Park with the Hubsan Zino. So the other day I was out here, so this will be a continuation of that video, and I had some issues with the battery warning on the app telling me that the battery depleted too quickly. So I decided to experiment around a little bit and see if it's related to firmware, which I suspect it is, but also it is related, I believe, to the app, because I didn't notice that until the last app update that it started giving me that that warning, and I know others have reported that too. But I want to see if rolling back the firmware can eliminate that and how it affects the bird. So I rolled back just one version of flight control firmware to 1.2.4, and we're going to throw this guy up in the air and see if we still get that battery depleted warning. The only thing I will say is this battery is charged to 100%, but I did use it for a little bit to do those software updates, so it does have a little bit of time on it. So anyway, let's throw it up in the air and let's see what if we get any of those warnings and how it flies, if it affects it at all. And depending on what we see today, I'll continue to try some different firmware versions. I've saved them all, so I've got them all. And another thought that I had was, I looked back at some of my older videos, and in some of those really earlier versions of firmware, it's pretty clear I was getting a lot more flight time than I am with the newer versions. So at some point I might just try loading one of those really older versions of firmware, like 0.48 or 0.49, one of those, and see how it affects flight time. And the one thing I do know is that I will get the warning on the app that tells you to update the firmware. Hubsan added that to the new version of the app. It gives you a warning if you don't have the latest version of firmware, and tells you to update immediately. But anyway, all you do is click OK and that goes away. But let's get it in the air and let's see if we can figure this out. Okay, so I've got everything fired up and the drone is reporting ready to fly. We've got 9 satellites. So we're going to do a hand launch here. Again, that is simply holding it in my left hand, hold it up high out of the way, hit that launch button with my right hand with my thumb, and I forgot I need to bind GPS. We'll do that real quick. Okay, we've got our GPS bound, so we're going to launch the drone here again. Hold it up and hit that with the launch button with my thumb. Okay, so let's bring it in so you can get a look at it here. We got a little bit of a breeze here today. That always affects the Zino. We're down to 97% battery, 96, so it is kind of dropping a little bit. Probably quicker than what you would think. 94. The other thing I want to show is that definitely this drone is not, if you get a little breeze, it tends to move around a little bit. It's moving in on us here. Let's back it up just a little. Yeah, it's hard to get it because it doesn't have any downward facing optical flow. It tends to move around more when you have a little breeze. You can tell when a breeze comes up because it moves around. So let's do a quick yaw around. I'm going to bring it in just a little, see if I can. And let's do a quick yaw and let's see how it does. Yeah, it's kind of moving around like it typically does. So it's rising. Yeah, it rose clear out of frame there. Now it's back in. Anyway, let's do a reversing up, and it's down to 80%. So the battery is depleting quickly. I forgot to start video, so hang on. I'm going to bring it back in. We're gonna start over here. Okay, I'm switching to video now. Double check our settings. Yeah, we're shooting 4K 30, sunny day on the white balance, color on ordinary. Starting video now. And yeah, let's do that reverse and up. So reverse and up. And we're kind of facing the sun a little bit, so that's not going to be the best picture in the world, but Not too bad. So yeah, so very quickly down to 69% battery, and you know, we've been flying for, gosh, the video says 30 seconds, so if we flew for a minute and a half before that, maybe 2 minutes. So it's definitely, there's something in that algorithm that affects the way this thing reads battery power. So yeah, it's a little odd the way that works. So let's try something here. We want to see how quickly it depletes. So I'm going to go in and let's do an orbit. So I like the way you can do the orbit like this with the Zino. You know, for instance, if you set it right above an object, you could pick that object as the point of interest and then back off from it, and it would rotate around that. So for instance, if you were trying to get a picture of a building or something like that, that's where it would be pretty darn handy. So where we were seeing the battery percentage deplete pretty quickly, it's really stabilized now, so it's at 65%. I'm going to fly it around and we'll see. We'll just see how much flight time we can get. So let's say that we were in the air a minute and a half before I started video. We can kind of estimate how much time in the air. And you know, I typically land it at 25% is when it wants to come home and when it wants to land. That brings up something else. I've had people tell me that if you drain the battery down below 15%, the next time you charge it, you get a much better balance charge. I don't know if that's true or not, but it might be worth a shot. So maybe we'll see if we can deplete this one down below that 15% mark, and I can try that theory out. Anyway, let's stop that orbit, and let's just fly around a little bit here. And by the way, I'm at full stick forward here, guys, just in case you're wondering. And yeah, about 7 meters per second. I was yawing there. We'll go out over the open field over there. Although it's depleting fairly quickly now. We're about 250 meters away. Yeah, so just as I was talking, so you know, like I said, I'm at full throttle here, and it really is sucking down battery. Look at that. 40%. Yeah, discretion is the better part of valor. I'm turning this puppy around, and we're going to bring her back over the park. Yeah, so just as I was telling you, I felt like the battery was depleting more normally. Boy, it really, when I put the throttle to it to go across the road there, man, it really started sucking down. So as you can see, it kind of stabilized now that I'm in one spot. But let's go full throttle again. Let's come right back towards us. I'm there by that picnic shelter. Let's go full throttle, full stick forward, and let's watch that thing deplete. And this is my second battery that has, I'm going to say, probably between 18 and 25 cycles on it. I don't know precisely, but not that much. Not enough that you would expect it to deplete this quickly. Yeah, so I think we were going against the wind when we were going out there, so that evidently used some power, because look, it's, you know, it stayed at 35% coming back. Yeah, I'm gonna stay right there. Yeah, I'm getting some FPV kind of shaking and break up here, kind of where I'm at, and it seems to be localized in this direction that I have the drone at. So we're gonna move to a little bit different location here. Let's go sideways. Yeah, battery level down to 30%. We've been flying for 8.5 minutes, 9 minutes roughly, and so that's ridiculous. You know, I used to get double that. So I've got eyes on the drone and eyes on his aircraft. It's cool, I can see them both at the same time. Obviously we want to avoid any collisions. Oh, that should be a good shot there. So we're just hovering, so we're not using battery at a very high rate. Okay, so let's hit some throttle here and get the drone moving a little bit. 27% battery here. We're very quickly up to 8.2 meters per second. It's just very close to me right now. Oh, it's in return mode here. I wondered what was going on there. You know, it's weird. It did give me that warning, so we're gonna cancel that. Yeah. So it didn't. I don't know if it has to do with the, rolling back the firmware, but it didn't give me that screen prompt that it usually does. Yeah, so here it's trying again. We want to get it down below that 15%. So I'm bringing it down here. So I want to fly it until I get, like I said, below that 15% that we talked about earlier. Boy, it's holding at 15. It likes that 15%. Yeah, I don't know if that's something with the algorithm, but it seems to be at 15%. It's just staying there. So let's just see what happens here. Punch straight up. There we go. Okay. Let me get it in here just a little. So we're going to do a hand catch. It's easy with this guy. Just reach up, hold that left stick down. Hold the left stick down until the motors stop, and we're at 15 minutes of video time, 14% battery left. So anyway, let me shut off video here so we that way we don't end up with a corrupted file. Save the video. That's important to remember. I think I mentioned that before on the Zino. Always shut off the video recording, because otherwise, if you shut off the drone, you'll get a video file that's not closed out, and it'll just show as corrupted. So yeah, anyway, down to 14%, which is what I wanted to do. We had, what, about a little over 15 minutes of time there. Now, much of that was at low throttle up, where I was just hovering and so forth. If you add another minute and a half to that, I don't know, that's about 16.5 minutes. I think on my other videos, I was getting like, I was getting like under 20 minutes, like 18, 19 minutes on the older ones. So, maybe that's not that far off. Although, I will say, if you were flying like I typically fly, with judicious use of throttle, I think we would have got much less flight time than that. Anyway, that's it for this installment. I'm going to experiment around some more. We're going to try some different firmware versions and see how that affects the battery. The one thing that I do like about this version is it did eliminate that warning that you got on screen where it's constantly bugging you about the battery being depleted too soon. So I think it's flew perfectly safe, just as it was. So anyway, we'll see you back on the next installment. Hey everybody, so another installment here with the Hubsan Zino. So I loaded some different firmware on here, kind of in an effort to test the battery and test to see. Obviously we were able to show that downgrading from firmware 1.2.05 to 1.2.04 eliminated that warning that you got on the app telling you that the battery was depleting too soon. So now I kind of went old school on us here. I went clear back to firmware from a year ago, almost exactly a year ago, March of 2019, to firmware version 1.0.50, and that was, like I said, from March of 2019, and that firmware, as I recall back then, it seemed like I got much better battery life out of the Zino. So whether that's related to the firmware or not, I don't know, or is it just because my drone is getting older. I've got my newest battery in here, battery number 3. It's probably got 7 or 8 cycles on it now, so you know, it should be a good battery. So let's just put the thing up in the air and test that out and see if we can do a little better battery life, and let's watch the battery percentage and see how quickly it depletes. So what we've seen in the past is that, you know, it drops down to like 65% really fast and then depletes more slowly. The other variable we have today is it's fairly windy, 12-mile-an-hour sustained winds with 20-mile-an-hour gusts. So it's a pretty windy day out here. So that could obviously affect battery life too, but we still should be able to get an idea. So let's put this guy up in the air and see what happens. Okay, so that was kind of interesting. When I fired it up, it immediately asked me to do a compass calibration, which I did. And then it asked me to do a gyro calibration, which I did, and then it asked me again to do a compass calibration, so I did it again, but it's showing that it's ready to fly now. So we're going to do a hand launch. I'm going to switch to video, and we're shooting in 4K 30. I'm going to start video now, and again, we're going to do a hand launch. A little bit of caution in windy conditions when you're doing this. I'd pay attention to which way the wind is blowing. It's blowing away from me, so that's good. What you wouldn't want is to have the wind blow the drone into you when you're doing a hand launch. So I'm going to hold the drone in my left hand, the controller in my right again, and just hold down the launch button. And nice smooth launch. And with this firmware, let's bring it down here a little. So it's really windy now, so it's really hard to make a comparison with, whoops, sorry, I kicked the camera here. It's really difficult to make a comparison with when I was out here the other day, because there's a lot more wind here today, testing the previous software versions. But in the meantime, I'm going to change my angle of attack here, and we're going to do a manual droney. There's a guy out here, you can see maybe out there in the camera, looks like he's testing a parasail of some kind, so I definitely want to stay out of his way. But we're going to go reverse and up. And we're going to stop right there. I am going to rotate the camera around here. And we're already, it looks like the battery is depleting fairly fast. We're down to 84% battery already, which is quite a lot. So let's go ahead and continue to yaw around here, and we're just going to stay within the confines of the park here and fly this thing around. And it is, you know, like I said, I'm watching that battery percentage drop. Maybe not as fast as I've seen previously, but you know, we're already down to 82%. Let's get some altitude. I'm going to go up to about 50 meters. I want to make sure that if this guy if this guy takes off in that parasail. I think he's just testing it, I don't know, but I want to make sure that I'm well out of his way. Let's drop the gimbal just a little. Get to that rule of thirds. And yeah, I want to turn on. I guess I can't do that while I'm recording. I wanted to turn on grid lines. So anyway, let's quit messing around. Let's put some throttle to this thing. So we're going to go to the opposite corner of the park. We're at full throttle now. Should get up to about 8 meters per second. Oh, it's more than that. It's probably might have the wind at its back. So 8.6. You know, that's about 19 miles an hour or so. And you know, we get a little bit of modeling on the FPV screen there. I am going to turn around and drop the gimbal, and maybe we can watch this guy, see what he's doing with his parasail. There it looks like it deflated. He inflates it and then deflates it. So I don't know if he's testing something or what he's doing. So you can see it there. In the kind of, yeah, there we go. Yeah, he's running. So yeah, but he's running into the wind, so I think that's purposely. He's not wanting to take off, because I think if he ran this direction against the wind, it might lift him off the ground. I don't know. So anyway, whatever it is, we're going to stay well out of his way. So let me pick the gimbal up here again, and we're down to 65% battery, and we have 5 minutes flight time. So I'm going to tell you that this definitely is increasing battery life, because before, just hovering in front of the camera for a second, and I'm accelerating full throttle now towards the opposite corner of the park here. I'm going to see if we can get above the flag, and maybe we can do an orbit around the flag here, which is always fun. So I'm going to drop the camera straight down so that we can adjust our, and see if we can get right above the flagpole here. And we'll pick the camera back up, and we're going to go into the intelligent flight modes and go into orbit mode, and we are going to set the aircraft's current location as the point of interest, and then we are going to back up. Yeah, about 30 meters. So let's execute immediately, and we can speed up our heading here. We drop the camera down so that we can see it. There we go. So there's a good picture of Old Glory there, and we'll just do a nice loop around it. That makes for a nice shot, doesn't it? That's pretty darn cool, if I do say so myself. And then that'll give us an idea. So we're down to 48% battery, 8 minutes flight time. So, you know, we used up a lot of battery, I guess, messing around there. Just seemed like we went from the 60th percentile down into the 40s pretty quickly. But we'll push it here. We'll take the battery down to about 15% and see what it does for us. So let's mess around here. I'm going to see if I can reduce altitude here. Yeah, I can, while it's circling. Let's see if we can get a little more direct picture. And I'm watching the drone to make sure that we are not yeah, we changed, so we're going to stop that. Yeah, so for somehow that changed the trajectory of the drone. So when I started messing with the yaw, it started going off another direction there. So we're gonna have to start that. We would need to start that over again. What I was trying to do there was lower the altitude, so you got just kind of a better picture of the flag. But the thing is, you can't go too low because there's a lot of trees and stuff around here. I don't want to get too carried away, and I also don't want to, there's a house right next to it, I don't want to encroach on them. So maybe we can try that again here. That's pretty darn close. Okay, so let's go back in there to orbit mode, and we are going to set the current as the point of interest, and we are going to back off. That's far enough, about 20 meters. Execute immediately, and we're going to speed it right up, and we're going to pick up the camera here, so hopefully we can see the flag. Yeah, no, that's a pretty good picture, isn't it? So it doesn't look like I exactly centered it. Let me pick up the camera just a little more. Yeah, so we got a pretty nice orbit of the flag there. I kind of like that. So that's one of the cool things that you can do with the Zino, is you can set an orbit pretty much wherever you want. You know, wherever you can set the point of interest is where the drone is at, and then you just back off from it and you start. Now you saw that I had some problems there when I as I was messing around trying to change the altitude. It definitely caused an issue, but I'm liking the way this is turning out. This is looking really good, and just enough wind today that the flag is whipping along pretty good. I like it. Okay, we're going to stop right there, and let's yaw around. That's a pretty quick yaw there. I'm sorry. And let's head for the opposite end of the park here. I just turned around and looked and make sure that we weren't going to interfere with our guy with his parasail, because I'm low enough now. We're at about 30 meters. Yeah, and it's telling us the battery level is at 30%. And we are about 13 minutes roughly now of flight time almost. So now we are at 13 minutes of flight time. The other thing that I'm feeling with this older version of the firmware is I'm pretty sure I'm getting that crabbing again. You remember how the drone used to crab? That's how it feels. So let's head back this direction, and you saw a little bit of an FPV stall there. Yeah, so yeah, so that was my fault. I was turned away from the drone. Yeah, so it put it into return mode, so that's fine. We'll let it head back here, and then we'll cancel that, because I want to take it down to about 15% battery and see what our battery time is. And I think we got like about 15 or 16 minutes with 1.2.04. So it's interesting that it was giving us those warnings on that older firmware. As you know, it says it won't do precision landing, etc. Yeah, we're already down to 20%. I mean, holy cow. So let's see. So we're up to 15 minutes now. So what I'm saying is, it appears to be, I think I got 16 minutes with that other one. So I'm saying battery life not affected. So I'll tell you what I think I'm, well, I'll save that for the conclusion, but I've got some ideas on where I want to go with firmware on this thing. So let's, like I said, I want to, boy, you can tell this older firmware really affects it. It's dropping there. Let's back it off a little here. And it's holding its altitude pretty good. Oop, nope. Ooh, it almost hit the ground there. I had to hit full stick up. As soon as I let off the throttle, man, like I said, yeah, I think it was within 6 inches or so of the ground there. Like I said, what I'm trying to do here is I want to get our flight time down to 15% battery. And I'm seeing it. Yeah, I just let it do what it was going to do there. And it definitely, I had it in full reverse and it was dropping. And that's, you know, of course, what we remember from that older firmware. So let me adjust our heading just a little bit. And we are, you know, just about 5 meters off the ground, it says. I don't think it's that high, but let's bring it back to us here. So we are down to 16% battery. We get down to 15%, and we'll do a hand catch here. I'll get it out of your way. So the drone auto landed at 15%. I was going to do a hand catch, but it landed in the grass. That was fine. So one thing I noticed is when it got down to 15%, it would not even take it would not take stick commands. It was going to land, period, at 15%. It was coming down. I had it full stick up and didn't change. So so let me go to shut everything down, and we'll finish off here. Okay, so we did our little test flight with year-old firmware on the Hubsan Zino, and you know, it did kind of show some of the improvements that they've made, because it definitely, when I was flying it, I saw it crab a little bit, and I remember that. You know, that was something we always complained about. And with regard to battery time, it did not seem to improve overall battery time. I think we got about 17 minutes there. I took it down to about 15% battery. We got 16 or 17 minutes, which was about what I got with the 1.2.04, and I think that's similar to what I was getting with 1.2.05, but 0.04 is where it got rid of that warning about the battery depleting too quickly. So I think that's the firmware that I'm going to load on here and just leave on there permanently. And I know part of that is affected by the app. I don't know if you can roll back to an older app version. I'm not aware of a way to do that. If any of you guys know, that might be interesting, because you might want to get one of the older versions of the app as well. Although, what I can tell you is what you're going to give up is you are for sure going to give up the ability of the software in the app and the firmware in the drone to tell you when you have a bad battery, because that came with the last app update and that firmware version 1.2.05. If you had a bad battery, it would tell you. Now, I'm not talking about the depletion warning. I'm saying it would tell you, hey, you got a battery that could go drop out of the sky at any time, land your drone right now. And it did give me that warning on my battery number 1 that I've had since I bought this drone in December of 2018. So I no longer use that battery. I'm just gonna tell you what I'm doing. Everybody can do what they want. but I'm going to go ahead and reload 1.2.04, and that's the firmware I'm going to leave in the drone. And I think that's kind of the sweet spot. You won't get that battery depleted warning. You know, as far as battery time, you know, this guy is a little bit of a disappointment. You reliably, you're only going to get about 16 minutes or so, which, you know, is better than some, but in this kind of a drone, you would hope to get more, closer to 18, 19, 20 minutes. And it seems like that's what I used to get when it was new, but you know, anyway, regardless, it's still a great little drone. And by the way, I noticed that Banggood had them on sale with a code, and who knows how long that'll last. But they were selling the original Zino. I think it was like $226 or something like that. That's a pretty good buy for the capabilities that this drone has and the video capabilities. So anyway, that's about it. This is Marcus Crawford with the Idaho Quadcopter channel out. And if you like this kind of content, please subscribe to my channel. Most of all, I appreciate you taking the time to look at this video, and we absolutely will see you on the next one.